Hello world, it's 7:15 in the morning. It's Saturday the 20th of December 2014. And this is my first take on Saturn in Sagittarius. It's a bit premature because Saturn's not there yet. Saturn's at 29 degrees 40 of Scorpio at the moment. He's about to move into Sagittarius in what, 2-3 days time? Sagittarius and Saturn, astrologically speaking, are not particularly good friends, right? Because Saturn rules the next door sign of Capricorn, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Jupiter and Saturn are not the best of friends. You know, they get on all right when it comes to business and money and taking the middle path, but Jupiter does tend to gravitate more towards extremes, whereas Saturn does tend to try and stabilize the center ground. So Saturn in Sagittarius is a bit of a misnomer in that Sagittarius's capacity for philosophy, expanding the mind, growth, development, humour, optimism, all of these things talk of the concept of development and growth and expansion, whereas Saturn's nature is that of either more constriction and restriction, bringing things down to bare minimum, but also, of course, getting one's priorities right, sorting out the difference between needs, wants and desires. Saturn in Sagittarius, on the challenging side, can lead, or probably will lead in certain ways, to an escalation of the religious divide and the spiritual divide that separates our world. I can see in the short term, as a result of this, a lot of the religious issues of recent times really coming to a head. And as a number of astrologers have said to me, Saturn in Sagittarius will sort out these fundamentalists. Yes, it will, especially as Saturn gets towards the end of Sagittarius. But first, it's got to really escalate the problem to a point of strong prominence, even more so than currently there, in order for the problem to be so strong that Saturn has no option but to deal with it. Therefore, issues of trust, truth and lies, honesty and deception and transparency will become more and more the issue. Saturn doesn't take prisoners. He likes everything done properly, steadily, thoroughly. Sagittarius's attitude is not always the most thorough. It's got the big picture in mind, not the fine tuning. So there may be some squirming as Saturn leaves Scorpio and the sting in the tail begins to carry over into Sagittarius. There may be one or two people who have suddenly seemed to be totally transparent and honest, but all of a sudden, as the details come out, there may be some fine tuning coming up. Certainly in your own chart, you really need to look at the area of your chart by which I mean the house of your chart, but the end of Scorpio and start of Sagittarius is in. Look at how Saturn is doing in that house and expect to see some type of notable difference in the coming week or so around the ways that Saturn experience is manifested in your life. For example, if you've got, say, the end of Scorpio and the end of Sagittarius, start of Sagittarius in the 10th house, then as Saturn leaves Scorpio in your 10th house, you may find that you bring a sense of conclusion or permanence into work situations that have been quite difficult, challenging or restrictive, only to find that as Saturn moves into Sagittarius, you start dealing with those same practices in a much more simplified, transparent and overt way, as opposed to the more subversive and perhaps occluded energy of Scorpio. Saturn in Sagittarius will bring a greater desire for accountancy and transparency. And as I perhaps said in a national newspaper about 14 years ago when Saturn was in Gemini opposite Pluto and the Saturn-Pluto opposition was happening in August, September 2001. And I remember saying at the time that don't we all deserve a future based on accountability, transparency and honesty? Because without those things, what type of future will it be? And now, of course, with Saturn just moving into Sagittarius, I can't help it. I know we've got a 9-month, 2-year even square to Neptune coming up, and that will be part of this series of Saturn in Sagittarius. But I'm looking way beyond that. I'm looking at about 4 to 5 years' time when Jupiter and Saturn come together on top of Pluto. Then we'll see some serious results. But until that time, Saturn's moving into Sag. Get ready, he's coming. Catch you later. Bye.